Well, it's a pleasure to have on the show Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri. And he's written a fantastic book that the left obviously will hate called Manhood, The Masculine Virtues America Needs. Senator, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
I see you're already coming under attack for defending manhood. Have you noticed that?
Of course. Although I like to say, if I'm not getting attacked by the left, then I must not be doing something right.
And what is it about the left? I mean, we had a chat about this on Life, Liberty, and Levin the other day, but I want to get into this even more. They're at war with the middle class and the family that holds up the middle class, aren't they? Isn't that the bottom line?
That is the bottom line. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And whether we're talking about traditional masculinity, which they hate, or for that matter, women. I mean, these are the people who now say that biological men should be able to take over women's sports and biological men ought to be in girls' locker rooms. It's insanity, but it's a religious article of faith with them now. And I think it's part of their broader Marxist, cultural Marxist agenda that you've written about, Mark, and covered. I think that that is what they are animated by.
Mm-hmm. And so where are they taking us? I mean, I know this Marxist, isn't it funny they never give us a blueprint? When will we know this is over?
Well, I think when we reach the destruction of the traditional family as we know it, I think back to that Smithsonian exhibit, that infamous Smithsonian exhibit from 2 years ago, funded with our taxpayer dollars, that said that the traditional family is a vestige of white patriarchy, and that the Bible, traditional faith, is a vestige of white patriarchy. I think what they want is the destruction of our history, the destruction of our cultural inheritance, the destruction of traditional faith, traditional family. And when all of that is destroyed and they are fully in control and in power, then it will be over. I mean, that's their goal. It's the Marxist revolution, but for culture rather than for the economy. I think that's really what they're aiming at, and we just can't let that happen.
And it is amazing to me, Senator Hawley, that when we actually have a few courageous governors, senators like yourself, presidential candidates perhaps, who stand up to this cultural Marxism, they're attacked by these moderate sort of rhino types. It's like, why is he taking on Disney? Or why is he fighting with this? What do you mean, why? Because you and others are trying to save the country, right? Right. It just bothers me.
Yep. Yeah, I think that there's a segment of the Republican leadership class, the professional DC Republicans, who are really just the surrender caucus, and they don't have any appetite for this. They don't want to talk about the family. They don't want to talk about culture at all, ever. They don't want to talk about blue-collar work in America. They're just interested in making sure Wall Street gets what it wants, and that they're left alone to enjoy the cocktail circuit. And I just think, the day for that kind of there never was a day for that kind of republicanism, right? I mean, that was always bad, but now it's deathly. I mean, now it's like no. If that's what you think it means, defend America, then you are sadly mistaken. We're in a time of fighting over first principles. And that's really what we're battling for here.
Very, very true. So let's talk about your book, Manhood. You talk about your own life. You talk about your grandfather in particular, your father, your family. Can people who are raised in families that really are not nuclear families, or there's issues taking place in the families, or the father's not around today, can they still step out and survive and even thrive? That is, following your prescription, which is basically, look, work, be accountable, love somebody, marry that person, have children, raise a family, and take advantage of the freest country on the face of the earth.
That's it right there. That is the prescription. And the answer is yes, absolutely. There's no such thing as perfection, and particularly for men, maybe young men who think, well, I didn't have the advantage of a father. I didn't have a role model. And that is many, many men today. Or maybe you did have a father, but, he wasn't a very good one. And that's a lot more men today. Same is true. At the end of the day, our own choices in our life are ultimately what determine the trajectory of our life, right? So maybe we were dealt a tough hand, maybe we weren't, but whatever hand we were dealt in terms of family, influence, mentors, etc., we can do something about our own lives. We can make a decision to change our lives, and we can make a decision as men to take on responsibility, to provide for the people that we love, to protect those who depend on us. And if we do that, we can change our own destinies. We can change the destiny of our family, and we can change the destiny of this nation. And that's really the message I hope men hear from this book. It's one of hope and possibility, but only if men will step up. And really, it's on each one of us individually to make that choice.
And now when the left is teaching younger and younger children to abandon the traditional family, to abandon the nuclear, to abandon their parents, and when they're trying to keep parents away from the classroom, this is why, isn't it? Because parents woke up and they said, wait, what the hell's going on here with my kids? I got to step in. So the left has decided that's one of the main battlegrounds now.
And you see this with the push in schools, Mark, towards this trans ideology where it's not about treating people with clinical conditions at all. It's about pushing an ideology in our schools on kids to say that, if you're a boy and you want to be a boy, there's something wrong with you. If you're a girl and you want to be a girl, there's something wrong with you. You need to be constantly pressed to abandon the very concept of gender. And the way they do it, Mark, is to separate the child from the parents. Is to do it behind the parents' back. Is to deny parents access to what's going on. They did the same thing with critical race theory. We saw that during COVID. And so it's this insidious effort by the left and by bureaucrats to try and separate kids and parents, and to deny parents the ability to know what's going on in their kids' lives and make choices for their family. And this is why I think as conservatives, there's hardly an issue that is more important than protecting parents' ability to know what's going on in their kids' education, to have control over that, and to be able to have the right to raise their children and not have them raised by government or some corporation somewhere.
The book is Manhood, The Masculine Virtues America Needs. We're going to post it all over our social sites. You can go directly to Amazon.com. The book has come out today. It's a fantastic book. The book is called Manhood. I want to encourage you to get it, have your kids read it, and so forth. My question to you, Senator, and if you can, I'd like to hold you over to another segment here, which
Sure.
is your grandfather, who you really obviously admired greatly. My question to you is, what would your grandfather say about what he sees today, and what would he say to do about it? Because I think your grandfather was a lot like my father. First of all, my father might use a few words there and say, but nonetheless, a World War II vet, I don't think he'd be very pleased about what's taking place. But the next question, what do you think your grandfather would say to do about it? We'll be right back with Senator Josh Hawley. Fantastic new book, Manhood, The Masculine Virtues America Needs. I want to encourage you to get it, Amazon.com, any major bookstore. It's out today. I want to circle back to your grandfather, Senator, what he would think today. But before I do, there's something wrong when a senator has to write a book like this, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's an extraordinary time, Mark, when we're having a conversation that includes stuff like, should men be allowed in women's sports? Is it really good for men to be medicated when they're little boys in schools? And, should we, maybe it's not such a great idea to shove all this medication down their throat when they're in kindergarten, where that is like actually something that is contested and we have to argue for it. That we are in a strange and disorienting time, but we are. And I just think the best thing that we can do, or one of the best things, is we can tell the stories again about what it looks like to be a good, strong man. We can recover those role models from our history, from our faith tradition. We can hold those up and say, okay, this is what it looks like. This is what I should aspire to.
Mm-hmm. Now, your grandfather, tell us a little bit about your grandfather and what you think he would think about what's going on.
Well, I think he would be, just completely befuddled and bewildered by this, what the left is saying and what our so-called cultural leaders are trying to push on men and women, frankly. My grandfather was that the first generation of our family born in the United States, his dad was a Norwegian immigrant. My grandpa was a farmer his whole life. He was born in Kansas, in north central Kansas, out on the farm. He never lived anywhere else his whole life. He farmed every day of his adult life and was proud of it. And from him, I learned, the simple but the foundational things really in life. I mean, just about the value of work, about the value of family, about the value of sacrifice. My grandpa lived a quiet life. He was not a showy person. He didn't travel a bunch. But what he did is he raised a family of 6 kids, and then I think, 16, 17 grandkids. And he devoted his entire life to making possible the lives of other people. He worked, he provided, he protected, he sacrificed. And to me, those are the foundational things, virtues, character qualities, what it means to be a man. And I learned those from him.
And this is a very complicated question, I suppose, so maybe it's not fair, but let's see. How do we begin to turn this around? How do we begin to that men in families start to take control over what's happening to their family and start defending their family?
I think that's right. I think that the most powerful thing that a young man could do in terms of changing the direction of his life and the direction of this country, and in terms of leaving a legacy, the most powerful thing he can do, Mark, I think, is get married and have a family. And that's exactly the opposite of the message our culture sends, especially to, both men and women, frankly. But they say, keep all your options open. Don't get tied down. Kids will only slow you down. They'll ruin your career. They'll ruin your health, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the opposite proves to be true, that if you get married, start a family, raise that family with the woman that you love, you will change the world. You will change the lives of the kids you raise, the lives that they then will impact. That's how you leave a legacy. So how does this get turned around? I think it gets turned around with men starting to say, I'm going to put my family, my wife first. I'm going to sacrifice my own interests for other people's. And then it's similarly in their neighborhoods and in their communities and in the nation. I think it turns around with men saying, hold on here, I'm going to stand up for what I know to be right. I'm not just going to be told what to do. I'm not going to be an androgynous consumer who spends all my time in front of a screen. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to keep a job. I'm going to be independent, and I'm going to have a say in my neighborhood and my government. That's how it gets turned around.
The book is Manhood, The Masculine Virtues America Needs. You can go on my social sites. You can go directly to Amazon.com, any major bookstore. It's a book very worthy of your taking time to read it and to spread the word. It's very, very important, and this is how we save the country. Let me ask you a couple other questions. This report that came out, and the Durham report, and the media downplaying it, this is a unbelievable report, the perniciousness of the FBI, the corruption of the FBI, the politicization of the FBI, and it only goes one way. They go after Democrats. Republicans on behalf of Democrats. This is fundamentally like a Eastern Germany Stasi operation. In other words, this really has to be stopped, Senator, no?
Yes, and it does. I think with the Durham report, to me, Mark, what it brings home is that the corruption at the FBI has really become a threat to our republic. It really has. When you have the FBI actively interfering in a presidential election, when you have them lying to secret courts where the other side isn't even in the court, they don't even get represented, and the FBI lies to them in order to get wiretaps on a presidential campaign, presidential candidate and his associates, you've got a big problem. We've got a big problem. And as you say, it only goes one way. I mean, you can look at, they passed on investigations into the Clinton Foundation where there are allegations of money laundering, other things. No, none of that. And then they opened and pursued actively this investigation into the Russia hoax that was a hoax where no evidence, none existed to open that investigation. They found none in the end, and yet they tried to take down a presidential campaign and then tried to take down a presidency once Trump was elected over it. This just cannot be allowed to go on.
And they're still at it, Senator. Joe Biden should have a special counsel. The information, the predicate is overwhelming at this point. Then you look at what they do with Trump. They go immediately to 5-alarm fire with a warrant and an FBI SWAT team at his house. And, you know, you practiced law for quite some time. I was chief of staff to an attorney general. There is no way my attorney general Meese would have authorized that to be done to any former president of the United States. None. I think they're still completely out of control here. Do you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, they are absolutely out of control. And you can see it. I mean, here are their priorities, Mark. Their priorities are sending SWAT teams to the homes of people who go and protest peacefully outside of Planned Parenthood. You know, if you do that, you're a law-abiding citizen, if you do that, you may end up with a SWAT team on your doorstep. But on the other hand, if you're Joe Biden and you sell your office for foreign influence, as multiple whistleblowers have now alleged, if you're Hunter Biden and you make who knows how many millions off of selling access to your dad, well, then that's fine. Then they're no interest at all. Won't answer subpoenas. Here they've been subpoenaed by the House to turn over these whistleblower documents. They won't do it. It is truly extraordinary, Mark, and it leads you to ask the question, who's really running this country? And the answer is the FBI would like to run it. The FBI hierarchy would like to run it, and we cannot allow that to happen.
You know, Senator, having talked to you Sunday at length, talking to you now, I didn't know you that well. And I have to say, you're a real force for liberty, very, very positive force in this country, in the Republican Party, in the Senate. And we don't always have to agree. Matter of fact, I don't always agree with my wife. But and by the way, Scalia and Clarence Thomas didn't always agree. But if you approach things from the same perspective, that's very, very important. And I think you do with most of the people who love this country. Now, you've been in the Senate for a little bit now. Is it all you expected it to be? Is it more frustrating than not? What is your experience there?
Well, you know, I mean, it's an honor to serve, and it's an honor to get to represent the great people of this great state of Missouri. It's a tremendous, tremendous privilege every day. And I will say, Mark, that getting to do little things that they seem little in the eyes of Washington, but are huge for the people who I get to represent in their lives, whether that is bringing home a loved one who's been stuck overseas or helping a veteran get the benefits that are denied him. That stuff doesn't get press coverage, and that's fine. But that is a huge privilege to get to see real people's lives changed. But I will say this, that the Senate itself, I think, is a broken institution. I really think that we're living in a time when Congress as a whole, I can't really speak to the House, but the Senate, I know, is in a period of deep dysfunction. And you can just see it. I mean, everybody sees it. It's not like it's a mystery. You can see it, that we don't have leadership that wants to address the problems that the country really faces. We don't have senators who want to actually do their jobs and legislate. I'm amazed at how often senators talk. Anytime a problem comes up, there's time a need is to be addressed, they say, well, let's give it to some bureaucrat. Let's create a new bureaucracy and give it to those people and let them do it, because we don't want to make the tough choices. We don't want to take the tough votes. And I just think, we can do better, and we've got to do better. And I'm not saying I don't serve with good people. I do serve with good people of goodwill. I just think that we're in a moment of crisis in the country, and you can see that reflected, I think, in our leadership institutions and our representative institutions.
So, folks, the book is Manhood, The Masculine Virtues America Needs. I encourage you to grab your copy. If you order it on Amazon.com right now, you'll get it tomorrow. If you're on the Internet and you're on any of my social sites, we link right to it, make it as easy as we can. I think it's the perfect book for men and boys in this country, and for moms, to remind them what they're supposed to be, if necessary. Or if you're a good man and you feel you're a good man, it's just a very positive book, and I want to encourage you to get it. Senator Hawley, I want to thank you, and God bless you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thanks for having me.
All right, you take care of yourself.